Right? So look, you need to review your Constitution, like the 7 Articles and the 10 Amendments, because there's a quiz on that. And I've also realized too, and if you're listening at home, this will be relevant, that giving you a quiz online is not the same as giving you a quiz here. So what I'll do, one day for you all, I'll give you guys a quiz while you're in class, and then I'll give the other group a quiz when they're in class. So that way you have to take it right here, because sometimes I think people are, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say cheating, but perhaps, I don't know. What is it? Maybe discussing what answers to look for. That's a good word for it. I'll go with that. Okay. So look, the Constitution. You're on your own for knowing the amendments. We talked about the 7 Articles. We want to talk about a little something different about how people view the Constitution, because they often view it incorrectly. Right. One of the things that people view the Constitution as, though, is an important symbol. Okay? America loves symbols, right? What are some symbols that America loves? The bald eagle. Everybody loves a bald eagle. I would make a bald eagle noise, but it would sound more like a dying bird, right? That's an important symbol for us. Paul, what's another symbol that is indicative of America? Uncle Sam, all right? Red, white, and blue, pointing at you, saying, I want you. Right? Uncle Sam, a good one. What else is another thing that's symbolic of America? The flag, the American flag. These colors don't run. Yeehaw. What is a symbol of America, Maggie?
The Statue of Liberty.
Statue of Liberty. That's great. What else? What's another good symbol for the United States? Come on, there's tons of them.
Don't tread on me.
The Don't Tread on Me flag, too. You're like, oh, yeah. I also would throw in that category the join or die with the snake. We all like that one. Right? Symbols are important for us, man. Now, let me ask you this. Documents like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, would you say those are symbols? Absolutely. And the Constitution is a terribly important symbol for Americans. Okay? And here's how we know this. And it also, I think, shows the irony. Now, part of me wants to conduct a social experiment. And I feel like somebody in this room would probably help me out. I feel like Maggie would probably help me with this experiment. Okay? And here's what my experiment idea is. You guys tell me if you think it'd be a good idea. I would like to create a video to post on YouTube of us as a group burning copies of the Constitution.
I'm so down for that.
What is it?
I'm so down.
Maggie says she's totally down for that. By the way, is anybody like, I can't do that, Mr. Slims. I just can't. Anybody like, I could not do that, even if you offered me 1 million bonus points.
Probably like a borderline legal, but it sounds fun.
You're like, it could be illegal, but it sounds fun. Now, here's the thing, and by the way, I wouldn't really burn a copy of the Constitution, but what do you think the reactions would be to a video like that, especially in this area in southern West Virginia?
Like a death threat.
Oh, I'd like, people would come at me hard. How many death threats do you think I'd get within a month? A lot. I'd get a bunch of dislikes on YouTube, and the people would hate on me. Right? Now, here's my question to that, and here's how I would, like if I actually did that, here would be my response to people. We say that the Constitution is important to us, and it's a symbol of America, but if I started asking people what's in the Constitution, how many do you think would actually know what's in there?
Like 2%.
Maybe, if that. I always like to compare the Constitution. Constitution's a lot like the Bible. People say it's really important to them, but how much time do they really spend studying it? Okay? Americans look at the Constitution in the wrong way. They see it as this important symbol, but they don't look at it to see why we value it as an important symbol. Okay? Like, for example, what are the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment? Anybody name them? Maybe as a group you guys can name them. What's in the First Amendment? Give me one of them. That's Second Amendment. Freedom of speech, that's 1.
Freedom of the press.
Freedom of the press, that's 2.
Peaceful protest.
Peaceful protest.
That's what
Religion. Assembly. Right? You guys as a group were either being super quiet or you just didn't know. And there's nothing wrong with admitting you don't know, but people elevate something way up high. And I would also compare it to this. It's like people have loved my mom more than anything. She's like, you know what's wrong with schools? And I'm like, tell me, oh wise one, what's wrong with schools? She's like, they took the 10 Commandments out of schools. They took religion out of schools. And I'm like, number one, how many people who are even super religious could name all 10 Commandments? And number two, I'm like, they didn't take religion out of school. You can still pray. Believe me, if you've ever taken one of Trina Wise's calc tests like they have today, you're going to say some prayers. Anybody got calc? Oh, thank goodness, because it's like, ugh, right? I got my good luck turkey up there on the wall that if you touch it on the way out, it gives you good luck on a test. And like they were slapping it today as they were pulling the calc. Right? That's how serious it is. Right? So look, America's real big on symbolism, and they see the Constitution as this important symbol, but not see it for what it is, which is setting up a new national government. Okay? It's setting up a national government and giving it the powers it needs to correct all the problems from the Articles of Confederation. Also, this leads us into misconceptions people have about the Constitution. Okay? What do you think are some common misconceptions that people have about our government and the Constitution? All right, let me start you out with a simple one. People always say, this is a blank country. I can do what I want. It's a free country. I can do whatever I want. Is that true? Not exactly. Are you free to do as you please? No. There's no such thing as absolute freedom. You're not free to do what you want. I can't go around slapping people in the face. Right? You're going to get punished for that. Right? What else would be a major misconception? Who do they think is in charge of the country and runs everything? The president, right? But remember, the president's part of the executive branch, and what order do we put that branch in the three branches? He's second. Who's first? The legislative branch, a lawmaking body. How about this? What do they think in terms of the Constitution and how it relates to religion? What do they think? Do people think the Constitution is a religious-based document? I think a lot of them do. Is religion mentioned in the Constitution? Barely. And basically, it's like you have freedom of religion. People don't understand. Think of this. What do you think they're more likely to know? The 5 freedoms in the First Amendment, or the 3 branches of government, or who the Kardashians are? Or how about this? Let's play a word association game. Raise your hand if you know who this person is. If I say Big Ed, see, some of y'all are laughing. Who knows who Big Ed is? Yeah. What show is that from?
From 90 Day.
90 Day Fiance. This summer, my mom and my goddaughter were watching that. My mom is almost 70, and my goddaughter is almost 15, and they think it's a wonderful show. And I was like, this is embarrassing. I'm like, you guys know all about Big Ed and 90 Day Fiance. And yesterday, as I was getting ready to watch the vice presidential debate, Big Brother was on CBS, and I'm like, this show's still on TV? I don't know why. Right? People know all about that. They don't know about government. Okay? And if they did, they would know that there are some important principles in government of which they should be aware. Okay? So look, a lot of things are unwritten about the Constitution. We think that there's this massive symbolism associated with it, but we don't know what's in it. And the important stuff that is in it, we don't bother looking for. Okay? Now remember, one of the important things about the Constitution is it's written to control the power of the national government because everybody's afraid. Remember, what did they just get away from in 1787?
Tyrannical threat.
A tyrannical British government. And they're like, we don't want that anymore. Okay? So when they make a new national government, they're like, we got to make sure this thing's not too powerful. So they did a couple things. They embedded certain things. One of the things they did is they created the concept or used the concept of separation of powers, dividing the government power into 3 distinct branches. Ooh. Okay? There's 3 distinct branches. Remember, legislative makes the laws, executive enforces, and judicial interprets the laws. Okay? Second thing that they put in here, and they never use the phrase separation of powers. They didn't use the phrase checks and balances either. Okay, it's the principle of it. Right? Checks and balances refers to the fact that each one of these branches has power over the other two. Okay, so that no one could ever get too dominant. It's like the ultimate game of rock, paper, scissors. Okay, you guys still play that, right? People know what I'm talking about. Okay, just making sure. Some things are like eternal. Okay, rock beats scissors, scissors cuts paper, paper covers rock. If you had a go-to, you're like, I definitely go to rock. That's my go-to. You don't like that? What's your go-to?
Or if you just tell somebody like the pants they're wearing, they automatically go scissors, and they just go rock. Remind them.
Oh man, it's ridiculous. Now I want to play, but that's beside the point. Rock, paper, scissors. Essentially, they all have power over the others. Okay. Now these concepts are both embedded in another one of our primary articles that we have to read, Federalist number 51. Remember, the Federalist Papers are documents written specifically to calm people's fears about an overly powerful national government. Okay? Do me a favor, grab your MacBook if you don't have it with you, and look in your folder for today, and you will find a copy of said document. And we're going to look at it together, and we're going to use kind of a truncated version, and we're going to slim it down even more. Truncated meaning like a partial one, not a complete one. Okay? Federalist number 51. There were 50 of them that came before this. That means they had a lot of complaints about this Constitution that they had to address. Now, when you get that up, what we're going to do is we're going to annotate a little bit, not annotate in the Englishy sense, but at least highlight a few things. So open that up, and you should be able to open up as a PDF and utilize that to some capacity. All right? And while you're doing that, I'll read the little intro that I put in here too. And look, I'm pretty sure I only made 1 or 2 typos on this one, so please forgive me. The men who wrote the Constitution understood the overarching fears of a national government with too much power, so they sought to break up the national government into distinct branches, legislative, executive, and judicial. We refer to this concept as the doctrine of separation of powers. But James Madison needed to address the concerns that one of the branches, which he refers to as departments in this article, or a single person might acquire too much power. Okay? Madison wrote the following, and so we're gonna take a look at this together. To what expedient then shall we finally resort for maintaining in practice the necessary partition of power among the several departments as laid down in the Constitution? And he says, look, those 3 departments, how do we maintain the necessary partition of power? What's a partition? It's what? Like a stop, something that prevents things from coming together, something that parts things, okay? Like, for example, these little shields could be an example of a partition, right? Something that keeps things apart. If you divide up the powers into legislative, executive, judicial, how can you be sure that one of those 3 branches won't try to take power from the other 2? So think of it this way. If I leave the room, I'm going to leave 3 people in charge. Okay, and Wheeler, you're going to be 1, right? And over here, we're going to make Deal the second one, and Moses, you're going to be the third one, because everybody knows that Moses is a leader, whether they want to be or not, right? It's Old Testament, you have to. All right, so Wheeler, Deal, and Moses, all kind of automotive terms, right? Ultimately, they're going to be in charge when I leave. They all have a distinct amount of power. How do I know when I leave that that Wheeler will not try to take power from the other 2, or any one of them might try to take too much power? I won't know. How do I keep that partition of power? I won't know. How do you all make sure that one of them won't get too much power?
Set boundaries.
Set boundaries. Oh, that's a good idea. But here's the thing. Well, every time we set boundaries for human beings, what do?
Break the boundary.
People are habitual line steppers. What do?
Give them specific roles.
Give them specific roles. Well, how do I know Wheeler won't try to take her roles? All right, take a look. Here's how Madison answers this question. This defect must be supplied, meaning that this problem, this defect must be answered, by contriving the interior structure of the government as that its several constituent parts, meaning those 3 parts, all right, have the means of keeping each other in their proper places. Okay? How do I make sure that Deal and Wheeler and Moses have the means to keep each other in their proper places? What can I do to make sure they're able to keep themselves in their proper places? What could I do for them to make sure that they could defend themselves against an encroachment of power? Prepare them how? Think more basic. If I was going to send you into the streets of Brooklyn in the middle of the night and I wanted to make sure that nobody overpowered you, what could I do for you? Give you a weapon, okay? Give you a weapon, all right? And that's what James Madison says we have to do for the three branches, Kennedy. They need a weapon, right? Deal, what weapon would you like to have? You're going to get a lead pipe, okay? Because you could whack somebody across the face with it. And that'll deter a lot of people, too. They're like, you don't want to risk it, okay? And Wheeler, you're going to get a knife, okay? You're like, oh, yes, it's very solid, especially when you stab things with it, right? And over here, we're going to give Moses a gun, okay? And look, Moses, nothing personal, but you don't have testosterone, so not much anyway. Trust me, you don't want it. You don't want it, all right? And so you're not physically have the musculature of those two, so you're going to need a gun, all right? And look, that'd be a powerful deterrent because, what's he going to do with a lead pipe? You're like, come at me, bro. And what's he going to do with a knife? Like, you could shoot him, okay? So each one of them has a weapon, all right? Now, scroll down and look at this and see the next paragraph here, okay? Madison's worried about how these separate branches are going to stay separate and prevent tyranny, okay? But the great security against the concentration of powers in the same department consists in giving those to administer each department the necessary constitutional means and personal motives to resist the encroachment of others. Those are the weapons we're talking about, okay? You have to give them, now this is a word people overlook, it says you have to give each department the necessary constitutional means, meaning where do you have to write that down? In the Constitution itself. So when I leave the room, I have to specifically write it that Moses gets a gun, Wheeler gets a knife, Deal gets a lead pipe. Otherwise, nobody will know for sure. Okay, and they're like, well, you just made that up. You're not supposed to have that. All right? So everybody's got a weapon to defend themselves. Okay? Now, take a look at, scroll down here and about personal motives that Madison said. He was talking about humanity, and he goes, ambition must be made to counteract ambition. Okay? What is ambition? You want to do something, the desire to act or the desire to get something. Okay? And what do we know about human beings who have power? What do they always want? More power. Okay? He says, look, human beings, it would be nice to think that Moses and Wheeler and Deal all are satisfied with having some power. But what will one of them, if not all of them, want to do at some point? Get power that they have. Humans are greedy. They want more power. Okay? And he goes, the interest of man must be connected to the constitutional rights of the place. It may be a reflection on human nature that such devices should be necessary to control the abuses of government. Okay? But what is government except the greatest of all reflections of human nature? Do you think humans are naturally good or naturally bad? You guys think they're good, but Madison's going to argue, and I think he's got a good argument that they're bad. I want you to think about this for a second. Little children, as they're growing up, do you ever have to teach little kids how to lie? No. Do you ever have to teach little kids how to be selfish? No. What's a toddler's favorite word other than no? Mine. Okay? And getting them to share and to tell the truth is really hard. All right? That's not their natural inclination. And he says human beings are ambitious. They're implying that they're selfish and that they're going to want to take more power from other people. So, Deal, you got to watch out. Okay? You got to keep one eye on each one of these two goons. All right? Now it gets better. Scroll down. Okay? He starts commenting more about human beings and saying that they can be really bad to each other. He says, look, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. So he says, if we were all angels, well, angels essentially are going to be good because that's their nature to be good. And he says if angels were to govern men, you wouldn't need internal or external controls of government because angels would always do the right thing. But he says in framing a government of men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed. So the government have to be able to control the people. And goes the next place, oblige it to control itself. Okay? The government has to be able to control itself. That's going to be hard to do. All right? A dependence on the people is no doubt the primary control of government. Remember, once again, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, all the early founding fathers, they believed in John Locke's idea that the people are important. You have ability to control the government in November, on the first Tuesday in November. That's your ability to control the government. But that's not enough, because he says, look, experience has taught mankind the necessity of auxiliary precautions, meaning that you have to be able to allow the government to stop itself sometimes, because the people are going to do dumb stuff. Right? For example, the people who strongly dislike Donald Trump would be like, we made a mistake in 2016. Right? And that the government, the other branches, need to act against Trump. Okay? Now, take a look at these last couple paragraphs. Madison noted that the three branches must be given a way to defend themselves when the other branches attempt to expand their power. He said the constant aim is to divide and arrange the offices in such a manner that they may be a check on each other. Okay? Now, the check on each other is like having those weapons, right? And the ability to use them. And the idea is this, that over here, what if Moses starts getting a little bit antsy and thinking, you know what, I've got a gun. I could probably shoot the other two and take their power away, right? But Deal and Wheeler, they're no dummies. They understand that she thinks she's hot stuff, right? Oh, she's got a gun, they say. And so Wheeler and Deal, what happens when she starts trying to get too much authority? What did they do? They gang up on her and attack her together. And Deal's like, look, I will fake like I'm going to hit her with the lead pipe and you stab her. Exactly. Okay? So you got to watch out for them. All right, now, notice this too, and this is where people get confused. It's not possible to give each department an equal power of self-defense. Those three branches are not meant to be equal. Your weapons aren't equal. Okay? In a Republican government, little r, meaning representative democracy, the legislative authority necessarily predominates. All right? The legislative body is the most important of the three. Okay? It's going to be the most powerful. And even though it's the most powerful, he says we're going to try to make sure it doesn't do anything bad. Here's why. He says the remedy for this inconvenience is to divide the legislature into different branches. Meaning that lawmaking body, we broke it up into what? The Senate and the House. Okay? That way we could dilute the lawmaking body's power. So Moses, you're going to pretend that you're the lawmaking body. We're going to have to split you in two. Okay? One half of you will get the bullets. The other half gets the gun. Now, it says, look, you have to render them by different modes of election. The House directly elected by the people. The Senate chosen by state legislatures. And have different principles of action. Remember, the House, who are they supposed to represent? What is it? The people themselves. The Senate represents the interests of the state as a whole. Okay? Last section here. All right, we're moving at warp speed now. It may be necessary to guard against the dangerous encroachments by still further precautions. Okay? As the weight of the legislative authority requires it should be divided, meaning that because the legislative body is so powerful, we had to split it up. It says the weakness of the executive should require that it's fortified, meaning that the executive branch we have to make stronger. Okay? And it says we're going to do that by giving an absolute negative on the legislature. What is it when we say that the executive has a negative on the legislature? What can they negate? What do they have the ability to say no to? What is it? The veto power. Okay? That the lawmaking body is so powerful, we want to give the executive branch the ability to say no. because being able to make the laws means you're pretty darn powerful. All right? And therefore, the president wants to be, like, you want the president to be able to say, no, that's not something that we want you to do. So, like, hey, we have divided up this power so much that it can't possibly be too powerful. Okay? Because what do we do with the power of the national government? We divided it up into what? It's not a trick question. 3 branches. Okay? And out of those 3 branches, which one's the most powerful? The legislative. So what do we do to make sure it's not too powerful? We split it. And then to make sure the legislative's still not too powerful, what did we do for the executive? Gave him the veto. Okay? He's putting together the argument that here's why the national government won't be too powerful. All right? And the idea of separation of powers and checks and balances in Federalist 51 are a reminder of that, saying, look, you don't have to worry about this national government being too powerful. We've got it under control. Okay? Does that document make sense to you? Maybe. All right. So look, separation of powers, checks and balances, those are legitimate issues. Okay? But there's more. All right? Not only did they say, hey, we're going to divide up the powers of government and give them weapons to defend themselves with, but we're going to take some power away from the national government. Okay? We're going to implement a concept called federalism. All right? And federalism is where you divide up the power, government's power, between the national government and the states. Okay? Think of it as almost like a marriage. You have to divide up the responsibilities. And if you talk about, like we'll mention this more specifically next chapter, but if you divide up responsibilities, well, you have to figure out who's going to do what. Like in your household, who's in charge, like which of your parents or even somebody in the family, who's in charge of doing the laundry? Who's in charge of doing the cooking? Right? Imagine when you get married one day, you're going to have to address this. And what happens when both of you hate doing the dishes? Somebody's still got to do them, or they'll just sit there and it'll be disgusting. Right? And so, look, people can never specifically say the national government has too much authority because state governments do. What constitutional amendment guarantees that states have certain authority? Now we find out who's been watching videos and who hasn't. The 10th Amendment, okay? The 10th Amendment of the Constitution says any powers not given to the national government belong to states, okay? So if it's in the Constitution, national government gets it. Anything else, state governments get it. They get to make laws about all kinds of stuff. Education, local law enforcement, a lot of banking institutions, marriage laws, family laws. Right? None of it's in the Constitution, so states get to make their own individual authorities about that. What about laws about prostitution? Who should be making decisions about that? Is there anything in the Constitution that Congress has the authority to make laws about prostitution? No. So states get to do it. And what does Nevada allow? Prostitution in some areas. It's really funny. They tweak the law so that the only counties that would actually be able to do it are ones that are sparsely populated. So you have to go out in the middle of nowhere if you want to go to they call them brothels. That's the old word for a house of ill repute. All right. Last thing here, the concept in the government, limited government. The idea that there are some things the government cannot do. Okay? Can the government, for instance, block your freedom of speech? No, because we put that in there specifically that the government can't make any laws that abridge the freedom of speech. Right? And remember, when they wrote this kind of concept was something that was inherently like new to them. Okay? People back then, they just always presumed that if a monarch or a dictator is ruling, then they can do whatever they want. Okay? All right, that's a good place for us to stop right there. We're going to finish up this chapter in the next day or two, and we're shooting for a test like Tuesday-ish.